Alright guys, so a few weeks ago I showed you the 370 that I just bought, wherever it is, over there we go. Showed you the 370 and said we were going to be modifying it a lot to make it a drift car. Unfortunately, I didn't really film most of the modifications that I've done so far. I kind of just got carried away doing stuff. And like you probably realised by now, I don't make these YouTube videos to try and be the next Adam LZ or whatever, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to pump out content constantly. Sometimes I just want to do stuff and not bother filming it. Like I'm sorry that ends up being a bit shit for you guys, but yeah, I'm not into like just trying to get as many subscribers, as many views as possible and all that stuff. I just sometimes want to film videos, sometimes I don't. So, sorry, this time I just got on with stuff. I will show you all the stuff that I've done and just kind of talk through it briefly though. Try not to bore you, because I did film this once already and just rambled on for ages and it got really boring. So I'll just try and keep this brief. I'm not going to go into every single technical detail and whatever. So at the moment I'm in the middle of just putting the gearbox back on after replacing the clutch on the flywheel. There's the old ones. I have put a lightweight flywheel on. Let's see if we can get in here and have a look. Lightweight flywheel from JWT, or Jim Wolf Technologies, I think is the full name. And a new clutch as well from them as well. And I've also replaced the stock concentric slave cylinder, which was plastic, with this upgraded one from Torken. I'll leave a link to all the stuff in the description as well. And yeah, this is the crappy plastic one that was stock. Not great. Apparently they fail quite a lot, so I thought while I've got the gearbox off, we'll replace it. So yeah, that's one job that I've got done. Well, almost. I tried to get the gearbox back on the other day and it was an absolute fuck about for some reason, just wouldn't go back on, so I gave up and went home. So I'm going to try that again today. I also added this oil cooler. Everything's still kind of a mess at the moment, but yeah, I added an oil cooler. I just made this crappy little bracket myself. And yeah, ran some lines, made the lines myself, and then just added, oops, just stood on something. Just added a Mishimoto thermostatic oil sandwich plate there, and K&N oil filter. Also got rid of a load of coolant lines that were in the way that go to this like oil warmer / cooler thing. So yeah, that was fun, trying to get rid of all that. Added a new radiator. You can't really see very well, but there is a CSF triple pass radiator in there. In fact, we'll lower this down in a second and I'll be able to show you that stuff a bit better. But yeah, for now, just know that there is a new radiator in there. And I'm also part way through, well, nearly finished, doing the diff. Just taken the old diff out, put the CAS 2-way in here, finished sealing it all up. And yeah, that's pretty much good to go now. Just need to fill it full of oil, put it back on the car. And then there was some wiring stuff that I've been doing for wiring in the radiator fans, because the fans for some reason didn't work, so I've had to fuck about wiring them in. Also, you guys probably haven't seen how fucking horrendously rusty this thing is under here. Look how bad it is. And you might be thinking, oh wow, you bought a terrible example. Nope, apparently they all look like this. Like 10-year-old 370s, which this is 2009, they're all fucking horrendous like this. Well, maybe not all, but the vast majority of them. Because they went to a steel subframe on the back instead of aluminium, like on the 370. So that just rusts like fuck now. Apparently they're not good at coating things in the Nissan factory to stop them rusting. So yeah, I've been battling with bolts. I've had to like drill stuff off and I have such a fuck about. Every bolt pretty much that I came to snapped. So yeah, it's been a massive pain in the ass, and I ended up just cutting this brace off because I got so sick of trying to get these bolts out. Tried all sorts of different methods, and then I was just like, fuck this, I'm cutting it off, it's in the way. And I'll just get a new one or make a new one myself because it was not worth the hassle. But yeah, I think that'll do for now. I will get this gearbox back on and then lower the car down and show you some of the other stuff that I've done like in the engine bay. Oh, actually just before that, let's just quickly go through some of the parts that we've got here. We've got Wisefab front and rear for the 370. We've got these decap pipes from Torken. These are actually made by Torken. Pretty cool that they've started making their own stuff as well. As just supplying all sorts of other bits and bobs for the 370s and 350s, which is where I buy most of my stuff from. Not just because I'm sponsored by them, but it was where I bought stuff from before anyway. So yeah, there's all this stuff to go on, decap pipes. These resonators supposedly take out a lot of the drone that you typically get with a decap pipe, so we'll see if that works or not. We've got some BC coilovers. They're not actually coilovers, this is the problem, right? This is why I missed an event, because they're a separate, on the rear at least, they're a separate shock and spring, just like the stock system is, which isn't a coilover. Like, I kind of hate this. Everyone says like, oh, they're not true coilovers, but they are coilovers. No, they're not coilovers at all. Like, think about it. Coil over means a coil over a shock. So if the coil being the spring, is separate to the shock, it's not a coilover, because the coil isn't over anything. So that meant that I missed a deadline because I need the true coilovers for the Wisefab stuff to fit. Apparently you can convert these, but I rang BC, 2 different branches of BC in 2 different countries, and they both said, no, don't do it. So yeah, that's kind of shit. So I'm going to basically return them, get some other coilovers that are actually proper coilovers for the rear of that. What else have we got to go on? The car's diff we've already done. Like I said, Wisefab stuff on front and rear. And they've also got Wisefab, oh, we've got dual calipers as well. Got an extra pair of calipers that's going to be for the hydro for this. A load of stuff that's going to be for the hydro, fire extinguisher, because I always need them. And yeah, we're going to do Wisefab rear on this as well at some point, but I don't know when. So yeah, that's it. Let's get the gearbox back on and crack on with stuff. So I tried to get the gearbox back on, and I think the reason it's not going on is because I don't think the clutch was aligned properly, and basically lined up with the pilot bearing hole in the middle. Because this clutch alignment tool was really stiff to get in, and I think the first time when I put it in I thought it had gone all the way in, but it hadn't. So I've just fucking taken everything off again, made sure that goes all the way through, got it back on in the pilot bearing hole, and then started tightening all these bolts back up. I've got 2 more left to do, I've just done the rest. I've started using this little paint pen thing as well to mark, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see, but just to put a mark on the bolt and then on the cover plate so I can see if these ever come loose when I come back to it. Hopefully I'll never have to come back to it, but you never know. It's also just a handy reference to see which ones I've already done, which ones I've already torqued up and everything, so that's kind of useful for that as well. But yeah, I've just got 2 more to do, so I'll take these off. Basically what I did was tighten them all up to the right torque spec and then just take one off at a time, put Loctite on, put it back in, tighten it up to the proper torque spec. Hopefully nothing can move around when we do it like that. I don't know what it is about me and Loctite, but I actually put Loctite on these before, like literally a few days ago. And I don't know how well you can see because I can't remember exactly where the GoPro's pointing, but there's no sign of any Loctite on that. So I don't know what I do wrong, but apparently I do something wrong because whenever I Loctite anything, there seems to be no sign of it afterwards. Whoa, steady. So yeah, I even like use the activator stuff and clean it all off and grease it, or degrease it, sorry, beforehand, but I mean that looks like loads to me. If anything, that's too much. I was normally putting a little bit less than that on, but I don't understand where it all goes because it doesn't seem to stay on the fucking bolts. It's not like you can really do anything wrong after that point. You put it on, you wind it in, you tighten it up, job done. Hopefully it's doing something, even if there's no sign of it afterwards. Hopefully it's better than nothing, but we'll see. Right, so let's paint pen that one. So we just draw a little line on there, and then a similar line down here. At least then we know if we come back to this, whenever I come to take the clutch off, if that line doesn't match up with the bottom one, then we know that it's loosened a bit, which is obviously not good. To be fair, on clutch cover plate bolts is not very useful because you can't see them until you take the gearbox off, but on like the diff half shaft bolts and stuff like that, it's probably going to be useful so I can just visually see if they've come loose at all, especially on the 350 because they did start to come loose with the new drive shafts. So yeah, it'll be useful, and you don't have to like get a wrench onto it and check and see roughly how tight it is. You can just look and see if it's loosened at all. So that should be quite handy. But yeah, we've got 1 more bolt to do. You might be wondering why I've got 2 different gloves on. The answer is, I don't know. They're just the first 2 that I found. Right, so now we can take this thing out, and hopefully it's actually in the right place now. So I've got the gearbox back on after a lot of effort. It was not a fun job. But speaking of not fun jobs, I then ran into this little cunt, which is causing me a lot of problems. Basically, the new slave cylinder line, and even if I hadn't replaced the slave cylinder, you still have to unplug this line, which is a shit thing about concentric slave cylinders, the ones that are inside the gearbox, is that if you ever want to take the gearbox off, you've got to pull the clutch line off, which means fluid going everywhere and then having to re-bleed it, which is shit. But anyway, yeah, so came to plumb this thing into the old line, and this nut here just rounded off like fuck. And what I ended up doing was cutting the old hard line off and then getting a socket on it to hope that that wouldn't round off, but it still rounded off. I blowtorched it. I made sure I vacuumed all the fluid out before blowtorching it. But yeah, blowtorched it, used some freeze shock spray, mold grips, all sorts of stuff, and this thing still just will not come out of there. More rusty, seized bullshit on this car. So what I'm doing, after like 2 hours of fucking about with that and not getting anywhere, is I'm just going to run a whole new line, because I'm sick of fighting with that. So we're going to run a new line from the master cylinder all the way either through the wheel arch like the stock one or down through the side of the engine bay or something. We'll put some heat shield stuff on it, and then run it down and join it to this, which is what this is. This is a new fitting that I've just added so that I can actually join a hose to this. It's basically going to replace that thing. So yeah, a bit of a fuck about, nice waste of several hours and a few days waiting for stuff to turn up, but let's get this done. So I'm trying to get the line out of the master cylinder end. This soft line that comes from the reservoir was in the way. I've actually already loosened this off, so it's not too bad. But there are points where you can't get the proper crescent wrench on there. So I think now that we've got it loose, we'll just switch to a normal spanner. It's awkward because there's just like brake lines and everything in the way. Might be loose enough. Nope, it's not. Of course it's not. Get a modern car, they said. It'll be fun, they said. No, they didn't. Everyone said the exact opposite. Oh my god, why can't I get some? Everyone said the exact opposite. Everyone said, yeah, modern cars are shit to work on because there's so much stuff everywhere. And I was like, no, it'll be fine. Turns out I was wrong. Modern cars are shit. Speaking of which, I've just bought another car, which I'll do a separate video on, I guess. Not a drift car though, for once. This is just going to be a fun road car. But it is a modern car, and therefore will probably be a nightmare to do anything on. And it's mid-engine, so it'll definitely be a nightmare to do anything on. Right, this little fuck stick is coming out now. And the next challenge we've got is whether I actually got the right fittings, because I couldn't find any solid info on what thread is in this master cylinder here. Come on, here we go. So, hopefully, this banjo bolt that I've got will be the right boy. If not, this definitely ain't going to be done in time to get in the cage in like 2 days. So let's just see if that threads in first of all before we do anything else. I also don't even know if it's going to be like deep enough or too deep or anything. In fact, that looks like it might be a bit too long, but we'll see if I can actually thread it in. I'm desperately trying not to drop it into the abyss down there. It feels like it threads in okay. Yeah. So that's a win, but how far down does it go before it bottoms out? That's the question. So I think that's going to be too long. Yeah, see, these aren't particularly thick. I don't think this banjo bolt's short enough. Fuck. Right, so next task, order a shorter banjo bolt. Or cut this one down. We could cut this one down, couldn't we? Let's cut this one down. There's a plan. Right, I don't think this is going to go well, to be honest. And yeah, this place is a fucking mess. Give me a break. Cool. We'll tidy that up a little bit, just put a little taper on the edge, just so that it threads in nicer. And hopefully that will be okay. So I forgot to press record on the GoPro. This is the problem when it's on your head. You can't see if it's recording or not. I thought it was and it wasn't. But basically I threaded it in and it seems okay now. So what I need to do now is take it off, make the line that's going to run all the way down here. Probably going to avoid going through the wheel arch like the stock one doesn't just go straight down there because the clutch slave line is literally straight down there. And one thing I've not shown you as well is the interior. I've been busy cutting stuff out, like cut a lot of stuff out, but I'll show you that properly in a minute. So another day, another AN line that we're making up. This is the clutch line I was just on about. I've got some of the stuff with the black PVC coating on it because I know this is going to be running close to stuff and you know the braided line might sort of rub on stuff. But it does mean you have to trim a bit of it off at the end, which doesn't look great to slide this thing over. So yeah, it doesn't look great on the ends, but I figure if it helps avoid it scratching stuff and like rubbing through stuff, then it's worth doing. This is so much more of a pain on these tiny 3AN lines than it is on the bigger lines. Like even 4AN isn't too bad, but prying this braid out when it's so small is a bit of a pain. Yeah, that's flush. So now we can put that in and then screw it together. And don't make the mistake that I made once of trimming the bits of like flared braid off that get in the way, because they're actually part of the seal, which is kind of weird to me still, but they are. Am I turning that the wrong way? I am. What a fucking knobhead. You'd think by now, the amount of things I've tightened up on this car, I would know which way things tighten and which way things loosen, but apparently not. Just trying to make sure this doesn't push out as I'm turning it. Right, that's pretty tight. That is pretty tight. We've probably scratched the fuck out of this. Yeah, we have. Who cares? Right, so now we can go put this on and see where we actually need to route the line. Again, you're probably not going to be able to really see anything here, are you? But I'll show you it better in a minute. Well, there's not really a lot to see. I'm literally just threading a bolt into a hole whilst trying not to drop everything that's attached to it. So that's fun. It's fun for all the family, especially when you stand on the line that's trying to pull up. Just just, yep, good. Right, could probably do with getting this whole old line out of the way. There we go. That makes life a bit easier. Why you gotta be such a knobhead? Oh my god. Oh, I think that's it. I think it's in. There we go. So we want to go around the back of that firewall there. Probably just cable tie it to this. And then I'm thinking just straight down. Just cut a notch out of this or something. Just straight down. So I've made the full line up now, so I didn't film it all, but pretty much the same thing on this end as the other end, just with a different fitting. I've been a bit lazy and just routed it straight down the firewall. Don't know if you can see this, but it just comes straight down the firewall instead of going through the wheel arch and around here and everything. Just straight down here, because there's loads of space, and I've covered it in heat shield. Got a load of Funk Motorsport heat sleeve on there, as always. I've actually got 2 layers of stuff on. I've got some silicone stuff on the inside, and then this gold stuff on the outside. So it's extra insulated and extra protected, because it is going to run, not close, but like it's in the vicinity of some hot stuff, especially the exhaust, because the new decap pipes are going to have these resonators on that stick out this side a bit. So I'm going to make a little bracket, I think, to hold this in place up here, so that can go into it. So yeah, just something to hold it around there. So I'll just quickly knock that up and show you what that looks like. Right, I've just made this little bracket. I've just covered it in some primer, hanging it off some brake line at the moment because I couldn't find any string. So yep, just leave that to dry for a bit and then paint it. Well, because this is just primer, so we'll put some paint on afterwards and then we'll stick it on the car. So I've got the bracket painted. It's on there holding everything in place nicely. But we've come up against a pretty big problem now. Basically I was bleeding the clutch and it was all going fine, and then when I went to test the pedal at one point, there was a load of resistance, which is what you want in a nice stiff pedal, and then suddenly none. And when it came down here, this was leaking like mad. At first I thought it was just the banjo bolt, but it's not. It's actually coming from inside. I'll show you a picture now, like what's inside there so you can see what I'm talking about. Looking at like what's wet in there, it's either the like slave cylinder itself or one of the first fittings that comes off it, because everything after that point is soaking. So that means taking the whole gearbox back off, figuring out what the problem is, fixing it, and then putting it all back on again, which I'm really not looking forward to because it was a nightmare the first time, and I haven't got time to do it before it goes to get the cage tomorrow. So that's going to have to be left for another day. So what I'm going to do now is put the diff back on. Look at that nice rusty brace, look at that. Yeah, put the diff back on, put the prop shaft back on, then just wheel it around, get it on the trailer, get the cage done. Before that though, so basically the job for today is to finish stripping out the interior. So let's get on with that. So the GoPro battery ran out halfway through that. I'm not sure how much you've seen, but this is where we're at. There's definitely bits that could be tidied up still. I've not done a very good job of it, but I've pretty much run out of time, so this is going to have to do for now. Hopefully, once the cage is in, still be able to tidy some bits up, because like the strut bar is only going to be going sort of from the tops. So we'll still be able to tidy some of these bits down here that I've done a shit job of. And I know you can just use like a spot weld drill bit to take these things out properly instead of angle grinding them. But to be honest, I have more hassle trying to do that than I do angle grinding it, even though it was a pain in the ass to angle grind. Every time I try and drill spot welds out, it doesn't go well and it takes fucking forever. So I've just given up even trying these days. Just slap some primer on these bits down here that I tidied up. Again, there's a bit more sanding in that we can get rid of, but do that after the cage is done. Or just fucking leave that bit because it's going to have a seat over it, whatever. But yeah, it's a shame. I wanted to actually also get rid of some of the dash stuff, like all the heater and all that stuff, which is like locked behind this bar that's welded to the steering column and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to have time to do that now, because it'll be a lot of fucking about. Hopefully we can still access it after the cage is in, but it's going to be a lot harder. So yeah, that's where we're at for now. But yeah, the diff and everything is back on. You're not going to be able to see, but diff is back on the car. I've not tightened everything up or put oil in it yet, because I know I'm going to be taking a load of stuff back off pretty soon, like once it comes back from the cage. Partly because the gearbox is coming off to sort out the fucking slave cylinder thing, and partly because we're going to be doing the Wise Fab rear end, so I know I'm probably going to have to take the drive shafts and stuff out again anyway. So yeah, that's probably going to do for this video. I know it's not been the most interesting, just a lot of talking, not a lot, but that's where we're up to. So at least now you're all caught up, and I'll try and do a better job of filming stuff that I do in the future. No promises though. But yeah, again, like the 350, it's mad how much space is back here once you cut stuff out. Like, there's so much room. Probably doesn't even come across on camera, but there's so much room here. And also, it's actually better than the 350 because this is all just flat. Like where the fuel sort of access ports are, or whatever you call them, it's all flat. Whereas on the 350, it kind of slopes down and up because that's from like a 4-seater chassis, the G35 chassis. Whereas this, they've obviously from the start designed it to be just 2-seater, so there's a lot more room. Well, I don't know about more room, but just it's a nicer area to work with, because we're going to go rear mount radiator on this and rear fuel cell and all that, so it's nice to have a sort of better, flatter area to work with, so we can stick like battery and radiator and fuel cell and everything back here. So yeah, that'll all be quite a while away though when we do the engine swap over winter. For now, let's end this video here, and I'll see you in the next one, whatever that ends up being.